This is your host, Danny, and this is Common Mistakes from English Plus Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about common mistakes we make using the word invent. What are these common mistakes? Let me start with my very first example. It will not be long before scientists invent a cure for this terrible disease. What's wrong with that? Can't we invent cures? Don't we want to invent cures? Yes, but invent is different from discover. Invent is to create a machine, instrument, system, or process which has never existed before. For example, we say, who invented the telephone? The cotton gin was invented by Ellie Whitney in 1793. These are inventions, but not a cure, because a cure is usually discovered. To discover is to find or find out something for the first time, like penicillin, for example. Penicillin was discovered almost by accident. Or I've just discovered a new way of cooking spaghetti. It is not something I invented. It's not a machine. It is not something new in this fashion, but I have discovered, I found a new way. But it has always been there. And most of the things we've done as human beings are discoveries more than inventions. Of course, we've invented a couple of things, but most of the great things we've had so far are discoveries because we just found out how things work. We learned from nature. We learned from what's happening around us. So coming back to this example, we shouldn't say invent, we should say discover. So here, it will not be long before scientists discover a cure for this terrible disease. Now, let me give you another example. I'm sure that your host families will invent lots of interesting things for you to do. Well, what about that? When invent didn't work when we talked about a cure, obviously it doesn't work here, right? So what should we say instead? Of course, discover here is not relevant as well. We can't say discover, but what should we say? Well, we may use here think of or think up. If you think of, you produce a plan, idea, or suggestion by thinking. For example, can you think of a good birthday present for David? Or I can't think of any way of avoiding the problem. Think of. Think up is a little bit different. That is to produce a completely new plan, idea, or suggestion by thinking hard about something. They're very close, to be honest, but you can use them both with a slight difference. For example, they've thought up a new advertising campaign, or financial advisors will soon think up new ways for us to evade tax. So here, coming back to this example, it is not invent, definitely not invent. We could use think of or think up. So we should say, I'm sure that your host families will think of or think up lots of interesting things for you to do. Now for one last example, the word workaholic was invented in America. What's wrong with that? Okay, that's a word. It comes from work and alcoholic. They put these two words together and it becomes workaholic. It's an invention, no? Not really. If you want to say that, especially when you want to talk about words, we don't invent new words this way. When you put two words together and you come up with a new word, that is what we call coin. Coin a new word or expression, not invent. Nobody has ever used these two words in this way before, like workaholic. Before it was coined in America, it was not used anywhere else. But now everybody knows workaholic. So here, instead of saying invented also doesn't work here. We should say the word workaholic was coined in America. So that is everything and all the common mistakes I wanted to share with you that we make using the word invent. Another day, another common mistake with English Plus Podcast. This is your host, Danny. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you next time.